Video game companies do not care about you. They care about your money. Keep that in mind for the rest of this video. So yesterday, I was on the Lords of the Fallen subreddit, just browsing, seeing what people were thinking about the new game, and I stumbled upon this post. It's written by a username called SubjectTwist558, and the title is, "This game is not finished." And he goes on to say, "I've been having a blast playing this game, but it is clearly not finished. I don't think I've ever played a game on day one with so many graphical bugs, performance issues, and stuttering. I genuinely laughed out loud at how terrible some of the frame drops and cutscenes have been. Not to mention, this game was touted as the first true next-gen Souls-like, blah blah blah, and it features arguably the worst character creator in modern gaming. It's frustrating because the game is really a blast, and I can tell it'll have longevity. But they absolutely should have waited until the end of the year to release it, in order to do that final polish to get rid of all these bugs and performance issues. But you just know they were like, aw dude, let's release our Dark Fantasy game on Friday the 13th, it'll be so sick." Loving the game, but tired of paying nearly $100 for incomplete products. I think this post gives us a great opportunity to discuss something that most people probably know but aren't willing to accept. Hopefully, by the end of this video, I'll explain to you why Lords of the Fallen being released as an unfinished game is no one's fault except yours. Now, to start off with, I want to highlight that I do agree with this person. Lords of the Fallen is a very unfinished game. It has a lot of potential, but at the moment it is not finished. It has a lot of performance issues, at least on PC, and I have a 4090, so I should not be experiencing any sort of issues at all. I've heard that PS5 is decent for now. Apart from that, of course, it carries the Souls-like tag, which means that gamers are obviously going to compare it to the Souls games and Elden Ring. Unfortunately, the combat is not as intuitive, not as engaging as a Souls game, and some of the bosses are a bit easier. They're a bit more predictable than a Souls boss. I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. I am a Souls veteran. I've played Souls games since 2011, so to me, the bosses seem easy because, well, I'm a veteran. I'm sure someone new to the genre would find the game very, very difficult. Moreover, I really like the art design in this game. The visuals were stunning, maybe not as stunning as I would have expected of an Unreal 5 game, but it was engaging nonetheless. The first fight with Pietà, although she was one of the easier bosses, was still quite memorable. So it's not all bad, really. And to be honest, I do have sympathy for people who bought the game on release. The reason why is because I know that most of these people probably watched a YouTube video by some content creator who was hyping up the game. They probably said that it was the next best thing since Elden Ring, for example. Or that Lords of the Fallen was the best Souls-like ever. And when people get excited, it starts clouding their judgment. Personally, I never tend to watch YouTube videos before a game is released. There are very few people that I can hope to get an unbiased view from regarding games that are to be released. And with all these NDAs about, a lot of the views that you do get before release tend to be restricted in some way or form. Personally, what I tend to do is I watch a few live streams. If a game is being live streamed before its release, I tend to watch those streams. There are a few streamers who I trust to give honest takes on things, and of course in a live stream you get to see everything. There's nothing that's being edited, there's nothing that's being cut. You get to see every single issue that the game might have before its release, and you can make your own informed decision of whether you want to buy the game or not. Now, the interesting thing is, when I was watching these live streams, I could see the issues this Redditor is talking about. I could see the graphical issues, I could see the performance issues, and I understood that it had a bit of stuttering. And I bought the game knowing all of this. Because one, I like the setting of the game, I like the concepts, I like the art. And two, I'm a content creator. I need to know what the game is like so that I can form my own opinions. If I were a normal consumer, I would not have bought Lords of the Fallen on release. But when I went to look back at some of the pre-release content put out by these big content creators with their first impressions on Lords of the Fallen, a lot of these issues were glossed over, to the point where they just focused on hyping the game up. Players need to understand that this game being released in a bad state means that the pre-release version of the game must have been much worse. So you would have expected these content creators to have said something about this, but most of them glossed over it, which is why I have trust issues with pre-release content. Now, of course, it doesn't excuse the studio from releasing a game in an unfinished state. To their credit, the studio has been going around to the negative reviews on Steam, and they have put out some advice on how to optimize the game so that the stuttering and some of the performance issues can be resolved. And they even put out a patch to help with some of the issues. However, this is not acceptable. In the olden days, if a game was released unfinished, it remained unfinished for the duration of its lifetime. There were no patches, there were no quick fixes, hot fixes here and there. No, there was nothing like that. If the game was unfinished, it would remain unfinished. And, most importantly, no one would buy it. And that neatly leads me to the point of this video, why you are the person to blame for studios putting out games in an unfinished state. I think a good modern example of what I mean is Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I know that everyone loves Cyberpunk 2077 in this, day and age. They've been doing fantastically with their Edgerunners anime, they've put out extensive number of patches, they've released a fantastic expansion in the form of Phantom Liberty, which I'm enjoying myself, and there's even a live action in the works, which I personally think is a gamble, and I've done a video on that if you're interested on my opinions. However, I feel like people forget what Cyberpunk was like on release. It was an absolute horror show. You could not play the game. And this was because the game was pushed out before it was finished. But gamers have been so forgiving that they've allowed CD Projekt Red to have a redemption arc. But it's not just CDPR, we have other games like No Man's Sky. It was released in a horrible state as well. And thanks to the hard work of the developers, they've managed to pull it back from the brink, and now it's a, fairly decent game. But not all games that are pushed out in an unfinished state have a redemption arc. And in all honesty, games should not be afforded the luxury of having that redemption arc in the first place. Because what that means is, companies can get away with putting out unfinished, subpar content for consumers because they know that you will buy anything. And the issue in this case with Lords of the Fallen is that it is using the Souls-like tag. The publisher knows that people will buy this game, regardless of whether it is good or not, regardless of whether it is finished or not, or in a polished state. They know that people will buy this game regardless. Not only that, but they also have pre-order sales where consumers will give companies money without a final product at hand. They'll watch a couple of YouTube videos and think the game looks cool and it's got a cool story, and they'll just give them the money. It's ridiculous. So when people start complaining on Reddit and Twitter saying that, this game is unfinished and, studios are doing a bad job these days, well, it's not the studio's fault, in my opinion. It's entirely on you as gamers. Stop buying subpar content. Stop promoting redemption arcs. If a new game is released, I expect the full, seamless experience. I don't want any hiccups. And don't tell me that this is something that's unachievable in this day and age, because it isn't. Baldur's Gate 3 is living example, living proof that this is something that can be achieved. Yes, Larian Studios is an independent company. They do not have the pressure of a publisher looming over their heads, pushing for a release date. However, the reason why publishers are allowed to do that to developers is because gamers will throw their money at them, regardless of whether a game is good or not. So when I see posts like this on Reddit, I do feel sympathy. And I also feel empathy, because I've been there. I've seen pre-release content, pre-release impressions on a game, been tempted by it, bought the game, and then realized, oh wait, I've been scammed. However, at the same time, it's also your fault as a gamer, myself included. I'm no saint. So leading back to the first sentence that I said at the start of this video, unless you stop giving publishers and developers money for subpar content, this will not stop. Thank you for watching. Until next time.